Hello everyone. For this video, I'm going to show you how to go through our calculate aggro meter and incorporating what we did in the previous video for our construction script to handle our different collision types. Checking back in the macro really quick, we want to get the escape threshold world location and the sphere radius, or the radius of any other collision object that we're using. The escape threshold can be replaced by the escape combat zone. However, for the specific radius, we need to check what type of collision we're going to be using. So we'll just promote the scaled sphere radius to a variable, and we're going to rename it the collision radius. And we'll connect that in place of our scaled sphere radius. In the construction script, we're going to have to promote all of these to a different variable. So name it s_end b_end and c_end. And in our event graph, we're going to go to the top on begin play. We're going to take our enumeration and then switch on our collision shapes. We're going to connect the is not valid because we don't need to set this combat start if we don't have the custom mesh being used. We're going to get our sphere end, box end, and our capsule end. And we're going to set our collision radius for each one of these. For the sphere, it's get scaled sphere radius. For the capsule, it's the same thing of the scaled capsule radius. And for the box, we're actually going to get the box extent. Just get the vector length. And it's up to you how you want to do this, because we could just have the XY if we're not worrying about our distance from the Z vector. I'm just going to choose length. We're going to set it as such. I'm going to go into the setup that we did prior and remove the combat begin overlap for our escape threshold, because when I went through that video we had the combat start and the combat escape. We'll cut the combat escape because the way that we do this, we can't have multiple events like this. So the combat escape, this is going to be based on our construction scripts and overlap. So we just want to check to see, because we want this to be the one that has aggro going down to 0. Just copy the branch that I had before. I just had to undo some of this for the tutorials proper. So end overlap, we count down to 0 aggro, and our min aggro, which is 0. Okay. And now we need to go back to our construction script, and we'll make another event, for this time for begin overlap. Then we'll create an event and create a matching event. This one will be escape, begin overlap, and we'll cut it and put it back into our start and end events. Okay, so we're going to go in and change this back to a sphere collision at first, and we'll check can escape. I'm going to have to just zero out the start and end. So our combat start, small circle, and our escape combat zone, big circle. You can see it counts up the aggro. The closer we get, the higher that number goes up. And it still functions as normal. And when we leave, okay, and that's working as intended. So now if we switch this to a capsule, we'll switch it to a box. For the boxes, I would recommend that you have. You'll notice that the capsule actually does not scale value for both boxes to be very close to one another. The way that the capsule actually works with scaling is that we have to affect the radius and the height, but we have this attached to a scene. Now this is still going to work. However, you won't see it working until you hit play. If you find that it's counting a bit too fast, I don't recommend working with this. Or if you want to set it up and change the vector length, scaling measurements that I just said, you would have to do something a bit different than just having it be on the scene. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave that up to you if that's something that you want to do. Otherwise, this works the same way that the sphere does. And one other thing we want to do when we get to combat start, I didn't realize this until maybe after the first video, we want to set our aggro to be at our max aggro when we cross the line. And we're no longer using the escape threshold. And we can remove this from our construction script and just plug the true pin for our can escape to the enum. So we're going to make another boolean just to affect our aggro here, because maybe you want to use the custom collision, but you don't want it to always have an aggro effect. Maybe you cross that custom collision and it starts combat. Just because calculating distance with our macro based on a complex geometry is probably not going to work. So we'll add a new boolean and we'll call it can aggro. For our combat escape, we're going to convert it to a branch. And if true, it'll start our timer. And on false, we'll just call the reset combat. And then one step back, we have our combat start where we place the aggro. Again, we'll get our can aggro. And if true, we'll connect it to our aggro, and if false, we'll just switch it over to our start combat. And then we want to set this to be instance editable and expose on spawn. And we'll copy our can aggro one more time. And on our escape begin overlap, we'll just plug in true. So now we cross our escape threshold, nothing happens. Then when we cross the combat start, and when we cross the exit, it functions exactly as if we didn't have the aggro before. So that's about all there is to custom collisions and our aggro component. So if you have any questions, just leave a comment and have fun.